Welcome to Pure Hustle Podcast. I'm Mike.
And this is Orlando, and we're on another Monday mini-sode.
Yes, our Monday minis are the opportunity we have to cover one concept or topic in a short amount of time. But if you like this kind of content, if you like our style, the things we discuss, check out our long form podcast. We have a podcast that releases every Wednesday that is typically an hour or more. And it's also on YouTube. So if you haven't hit the like and subscribe button, make sure to hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the bell notification so you get notifications of the videos that we're making. But every Wednesday we have a longer form podcast. Today, though, we're actually doing a part 2. So this is Terrible Reasons to Leave eBay part 2 Monday mini. So if you haven't listened to our first one, go back and check out that one. It was really cool. It was kind of spicy at times. There was agreement, there was disagreement, and we'd love to have your comments and feedback. You know, where do you land? What are your thoughts on those things? But today, here's one that I think, again, could be a little bit spicy. A lot of times people they get this idea that I'm going to get out of reselling, or I should stop reselling. And one of the terrible reasons that people come up with is, now I have to report my taxes. Now, I'm not going to lie. I think that the tax thing is bad for business in the sense of there's a lot of non-resellers who are going to want to sell things on eBay every so often. Like, hey, I had a couple collectibles I sold on eBay, made a little bit of money. I sold a guitar that I had sitting in my garage. And if they end up making more than $600, now they have to pay taxes. Now, and that's not a big deal. Sure, pay your taxes, but the tax process is going to be significantly harder. So fewer people are going to be willing to sell on eBay that are just average non-resellers. So that's bad, I think, business for eBay. But as far as resellers go, look, you've had to pay your taxes no matter what. And maybe you've been able to not, pay them. Maybe you haven't been reporting them.
That's scary to me that people, I just couldn't imagine, because sometimes you have experienced resellers on these forums go, I've been reselling for 10 years and I finally had a 1099. I'm out. And I'm like, what did you do the other 9 years? Like, that's wild to me.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough. And part of it, I understand, because again, like the argument is from people who are like legitimate resellers who've been doing this for a while and treat it like a business. To them, it's like they have this sense of fairness. Like, I have to pay taxes. I have to do it. So should everybody else. Right. And there's definitely truth to that. I'm not discounting that. But again, if you're like, I made $2,000 on reselling this year, and now I'm going to have to spend like an extra 15 hours doing taxes on a couple $1,000, is it really worth me making that? So if you're just like really, really part-time, that's the kind of thing, like, again, like even stuff like tips, where a lot of times people aren't like, well, how much money did I make in tips? Now what can I write off? Well, I can write off these things and it totally changes what you have to do. Instead of just doing a quick and easy tax return, now it's a little bit more in depth. But if you're making, and I think that's why the 20,000 number made sense to me. Like, is it possible that you can just be the average person and one year you sold your collection of stuff and you made a loss? Like, you bought that stuff for $8,000 and you end up selling it and you make $4,000 off it, but you've actually lost money. But now you have to deal with, now I've got to do taxes to prove that I've lost money and don't have to pay money on this. So I understood why they didn't require everyone to pay taxes. But again, if you're a reseller and it's a reason to leave reselling, that's bad business. I mean, everybody's got to pay their taxes.
But it's like people,
whether or not you think they're fair.
It's when people are like, oh, I don't want to make more money because I'm going to have to pay more taxes. And I'm just like, well, okay, but that's actually a good thing, right? And I know, I get it. I was talking with Mike earlier how, there was this time when I was really broke, and when I was really broke, I had a lot of advantages, right? I had, cheaper medical insurance, I had cheaper power bills, I had, subsidy here, subsidy there. And then as you make a certain amount of money, you lose all that, right? And you might end up just as broke. It just looks a little bit better because you have more things. But the reality is you're still better off, right? You're better off being a reseller, paying taxes, than choosing not to resell and not making any money. So
now, does it suck? Does it suck if you were able to get paid under the table? Like, if you're a kind of person, it's like, if your job was an under the table job, you went and you did some work for some neighbors, you're getting paid under the table. Yeah, that feels a lot better. if all of a sudden you're like, hey, I made $1,000, now I have to pay 30% of this in taxes. Like now I only made $700.
Oh
I
no,
wouldn't do
yeah.
that job for 700. That's basically kind of what it feels like for some people. So it's
Oh,
like
I
in their
agree.
mind, like they made a certain amount and now they're not. So
But that's not
I
a
get-
reselling problem. That's a problem with the government that you voted for.
Sure. Well, I mean, just in general, right? So, but yeah, so that's a tax thing, but it's not a good reason to leave unless your margins are so low already that you couldn't pay the taxes and still be profitable. If you're like, hey, I'm working X amount of hours. When I was working under the table, it ended up coming out to like I was making $20 an hour. Now that I have to pay taxes, it's like I'm making $12 an hour. Maybe it's not worth it to me.
All right. I think it's funny because this is a terrible reason to leave eBay, and I think we're split on that one.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's a bad reason, but I think for all of these, there's exceptions, right? I want to get on top of the exception so people aren't go, well, actually, in this situation, right? Like, of course, there's exceptions, but in general,
but
it's
we'll
not a
never
good reason to
win.
leave.
You know that we'll never win. You can throw in 10,000 exceptions. There will always be a comment like,
I'll qualify it till the cows come home.
There you go. See, I've gotten to the place where I'm like done. Like we're never gonna win. So just be real.
No more qualifications.
All right, listen. I'm just gonna say it. Like I think a lot of people are soft. Like if eBay sides with the buyer, like I understand if it's like $1 million sale or a $10,000 sale, but if it's like $100 or $50, you see these comments all the time. One time, I sent this PlayStation and I got scammed $100 and eBay sided with the buyer. I'm done with eBay. Good riddance. Goodbye, scammers. And I'm like, okay, but what about the other $1,000 you made from eBay? Like you're going to leave because of that one time that eBay. Now, it could have been multiple times. And I've had eBay side with the buyer. It doesn't happen very much. I do find in my experience that as long as you have good metrics, you're not always calling eBay. You have great customer service. You do everything to resolve with the buyer. Chances are eBay is not going to side with the buyer. That is few and far between. But even still, I've had a couple of times where eBay sided with the buyer. I'm not going to go throw away the hundreds of thousands of dollars that could be made a month and over the year and over the span of a lifetime because I had a few times where eBay, even though I may have been wronged, okay, I'm not saying you weren't wronged, but that's still not enough to leave eBay. Like, I understand, you get upset, you lost sleep, feelings were hurt. But in the end, I would just say it's the cost of doing business, right? Shake it off, move on. I would say if it's something like a $10,000 or $100,000 or something, that's a lawsuit, right? There's ways to handle that with eBay. But if it's, a few bucks or $100, it's not enough to leave eBay. So I definitely would say that's a terrible reason to leave eBay.
Yeah, you got to have thicker skin for sure. The next one this one's tough because I think it's one of those things where people don't really know and they just use this as an excuse. And it's the idea that eBay is throttling their sales. People will say like, eBay is throttling my sales. I'm done with this platform. And the hard part is like, there's just not enough information. Like you can look at your own data and say like, it seems like I've had a dip in sales. It must be eBay. They're punishing me. And there is like some like legitimate data evidence, not just anecdotal evidence that, if you get a couple of negative feedbacks or you have some bad metrics that your sales are going to slow. So there's some evidence to that. But again, it's one of those things where you can only control the things that are within your control. So if it seems like, hey, I got a negative feedback or for whatever reason, eBay's lowered me in the algorithm, maybe I haven't responded to buyers fast enough, or I'm not promoting my listings enough to get that boost, or for whatever reason, there's just a glitch, or whatever number of excuses people can come up with, some legitimate and some just in their head, who knows? But the reality is you can only control the things you can control. And if you're able to control any factor that can help increase your sales, do all those things first before you leave. Now, if you get to a point again, where the exception in our rule here, if you get to the point where you're doing everything, you're listing stuff, your prices are right, and you're just not getting any sales. Heck, if I was at that point where I know there's something wrong and it's not me, it's not my price, I would just start another eBay store and start over, right? Like, and relist my stuff. Like And if that would maybe say whether or not it was eBay, but it still doesn't seem like a good reason to leave. Like even if it was eBay slowing your sales, because if you've got the right items at the right price, it's going to sell. And sure, if you like, I'm searching my item and I can't find it on the eBay's listings at all, it's not even there. They're not even showing it. That stinks. That's a reason to be upset, and that's a reason to maybe look for another platform, but it's definitely not a reason to completely give up on eBay.
Yeah, because in the end, eBay wants to make money, like you said, like they even though in Q2, right, they made more money from their promoted listings, they still need GMV, they still need people selling items, right? So I would say at times throttling, if it does exist, works to your advantage because they presented your item over somebody else's item. Right? They presented your promoted item over somebody else's, and they may be promoted for good reasons. Could be because of geography, could be because of your price, could be because of your return policy, could be because of your picture. So, to me, like you said, it's the unknowable. Like a lot of people get upset and they leave, and I would never leave because of something I couldn't say for certain. Like that's an odd one to me. Right, especially if you're full time, like that's a big move to make, And again, people are going through tough times right now. I've watched a few resellers; they have like over 10,000 items, 7,000 items, and they're getting 1 or 2 sales a day. Like that's crazy. Like I don't know what's going on. We do have a whole episode where it may not be eBay, it may be the economy, it may be what you're sourcing. Who knows what it is, right?
And it could be eBay.
And it could be eBay. I don't know if it's 1 or 2 sales a day. Like today, like I've said, like I've had days like that lately. Not 1 or 2, but a handful, and it's been brutal. But you don't know. You don't know. Now, the next one's an interesting one because this is like people that have been reselling for a long time, right? We've had a new CEO. We had Jamie Ione for, I don't know, 3-4 years. Before that, there's Devin Wendig. Before that, I don't know. And before that, there was like Meg Whitman. I mean, we're going way back. And a lot of people leave. I've seen people say, I don't like the direction the CEO is leading the company. I don't like that.
Do people say that?
Yes.
Like, is that a real thing?
Yes, that is a real thing.
I don't know if I've heard like a reseller though say
yes, that. It's in the forums. It's in the forums. Pretty sure somewhere on e-commerce Bytes comments. Yeah, they're there.
Yeah, but I feel like those are the people who are like, if they're willing to say I'm leaving because I don't like the direction of the CEOs, I don't know. That just seems, that's bizarro to me.
Yeah, but don't people think of education? Don't people leave because they're like, I don't like the direction that the superintendent or the principal is moving the school?
Yeah, that makes to me that would make sense for like if somebody worked for eBay and they're like, we're a director high up in eBay and they're like, I'm leaving eBay because I don't like. But if you're a reseller,
yes, that's why it's a terrible reason.
Yeah, that's a very terrible reason. It's a terrible reason, and I'm hoping very fringe. I hope the handful of people who leave because the direction that the CEO is taking the company, like that's a special kind of person who.
Wow.
I'm just saying.
I love how you're the one with all the qualifiers, and then you roll with that. Roll with that comment, but okay.
A special kind of person.
A special kind of person. All right.
I mean, if you're like, I'm just saying, like anybody who's like that kind of like looking through the data and like, well, the CEO's most recent report. I don't know if I wouldn't even be able to tell you the CEO's name. I wouldn't have known like if he's put out a memo to like. I think the average Joe reseller has no idea any of that stuff. Like now again, like maybe I'm a car part salesman and I sell multi-million.
Yeah, if you're a multi-million dollar, yes.
All right. So to me, it's like, okay, like I could get where they'd be like, I'm jumping on a different platform because they used to cater to me and now they're moving in a direction that's not helpful for my market and I need to figure something else out. But like the average reseller who's making, 6 figures or under, I can't even imagine that they even think at all about what's happening at
no, but I remember with the former CEO, people were upset because they were saying he was too much trying to make eBay like Amazon.
Yeah, no, right? For sure.
Remember that?
No, and I agree. Like I thought that was a bad move. But again, unless it's directly affecting your your bottom line.
I actually liked that last CEO. Like, I thought he was making great strides.
Yeah, clearly it worked out so well.
Yeah, I know. Hey, but innocent of proven guilty, so they haven't connected anything. But yeah, but
not just that, but I just mean like is like none of the things that they were hoping for. Like, I'm sorry, eBay's not Amazon. I feel like they should have focused on the things they should have focused on. So
no, I know. That was, but I, you know what? I just enjoyed the tenacity and I enjoyed the fervor when we went to eBay Open 2019. You know, I'm big on.
You're like you're living like you live up the eBay Open, man. Like that's
I loved
like
it.
the moment, man. Like
that was such a great time.
it was good, but
and now we're like, oh, let's go on these monitors and let's network with people into these little rooms online. Just garbage. Like, how about we get back to face-to-face interaction? Can we do that?
And to me, you know what I feel like with that, and it's not even just face-to-face. It's just, to me, that sounds like it's the direction the CEO is taking the company, and I don't know if I can handle it.
I'm done.
I don't know if I could deal with these decisions that the CEO is taking. All right, our last one is shipping prices, and this kind of goes along. I don't want to go too much into this because it deals with the stuff we've already kind of talked about. Is there certain things that are out of your control? Now, there could come a point where it's cut into your profit enough that you're no longer profitable. But again, for the average reseller, like, you could probably take a 10 to 15% cut in your net, sales, or your net not worth, but your net, income over the year. Maybe do that even a couple years and really be like, man, this stinks, and still find a way to be profitable and keep it going, and it not be the end of the world. And I think shipping is going to be a small percentage of that. I feel like if shipping increases, even if shipping increases 10%, that's not making a 10% hit into your sales. That might only end up making like less than 1% of an impact in your sales. Because even though a 10% increase on shipping is only a small percentage of what you're paying, hopefully. So yeah, it sounds like, man, shipping has gone up 20% over the last couple of years on a lot of these things. Yeah, but 20%. So what used to cost $10 costs $12 now to ship. So that sucks. But $2 an item, handful of times, it's not enough to end your eBay. But again, it's those things that it sounds, people get shipping prices too high. I'm done. I'm out. And to me, what a lot of this tells me is this is a person who is done with reselling anyways. If you go back to our first reasons people left and this one here, I feel like what it's like, Orlando, when somebody's already like ready to quit, they're ready to leave, whether it's a teacher at a job or a regular 9-to-5 person. Like, when somebody's already there, it doesn't take much. It's just like the straw that breaks the camel's back. And so if people are already, they're tired of the grind, they're tired of hustling, they don't feel like they're not learning new things, they haven't figured out how to adapt. Any one of these things can be the reason, but taken in on its own, these are not good reasons. Now, if you say all the other things happening in my life, my family's not having enough time with me, all these things, yeah, but be realistic. It's not the shipping prices. The shipping prices played a small part in the
and you can always, there's two things too. You can, if you're doing calculated shipping or you're making sure you put your listings correctly, it shouldn't affect you, right? The cost go to the buyer.
No, but it will though, because
but
if you're putting that cost on the buyer, it's going to lower the total number of sales you're having.
I know, but I had another thought to add on to that. But if
you got interrupted for one.
I did. So I'm done with this podcast. No, so if you have items that cost too much to ship for the item that you have, then there's a problem with what's being sourced, right? So for example, you're selling something that's $10 and it costs $10 to ship. That's a problem. Right? You need to make sure you're sourcing items. Like, for example, I have items that, the shipping may cost $200 to $300, but what they're getting is worth $300 to $500, right? Or $1,000. Like, it's worth it for them to pay that.
But what if you, like, for instance, I look at my eBay store. Okay. I've got hundreds and hundreds of items. You've got several thousand items in your eBay store, right? So what you could say, like, yeah, source better. That might work for all things you buy new. But let's say the things you purchased, you were able to ship for a few bucks, and so you were profitable on all of them. And so an increase in shipping or an increase in fees now all of a sudden made 70% of your store significantly less profitable. You could say, yeah, well, going forward, I'll source better in different things. But if you just took a massive hit to your entire store, years worth of inventory that you've built, like that could be devastating.
Yeah, but again, you're talking about extreme examples.
I don't think it's extreme. Like again, like no, because again, like if you're in something like, I don't know, clothes, or imagine like you're in media, and this is like not a real thing, but like imagine you're in media.
This is the real thing.
No, my example is not a real thing.
But so it's happened to media though.
But if you're in media and you knew you could ship media mail, and media mail has a decent, price that you can ship the stuff, so you're only able to stay profitable because of media mail. And then they said no more media mail. Well, all of a sudden, all the things you picked up, and it's like, well, just pick up different stuff, buy your media mail cheap, or buy your media cheaper. And it's like, well, yeah, but I bought it at a price point, assuming I could ship it at this amount. Yeah, if that goes away, I'm devastated.
I think the econ vocab word from Econ 101 in high school, elasticity, plays a role, right? Elasticity is basically the idea that there's a certain limit that people are willing to pay for an item where they no longer will buy it. Like, so for example, gasoline. Right now, gas keeps going up. Guess what? Even if gas goes to $8, you think people are still going to buy gas? They are. They're not going to buy as much, but they're still going to buy gas, right? Where when you're selling on eBay, I do think there's a certain limit where people will only pay so much for shipping, but I don't think we're anywhere near close to that. It's unless you're selling cheap items that are $5 to $10 and your shipping is now costing $5 to $10. Then no one's going to want to pay 100% of what they paid for an item for shipping too, unless it's something uber valuable, and that's very rare for a cheap item. So to me, the problem isn't the shipping. The problem is the item that you're selling.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay. I mean, I
know what you're saying. Let us know in the comments. Let us know in the comments.
I know what you're saying. And there goes you're done with the conversation. So you'll say, let us know in the comments.
No, because I will have to agree to disagree on this one.
Well, that's fine. I agree to disagree with you, but to clarify my point even more.
Okay.
Again, it could be one of those things where there's certain things like, yeah, you could say buy better things or sell at a price point that you could sell it for. But for instance, if you went in on an item that was collectible because it was trendy at the time, and then all of a sudden, like you said, like things like Hawaiian shirts that have dipped, like where you used to be able to make a ton of money on, and now you can't make as much money on, right? So if that was like your store, you had like 80% of your store was those because you were able to source those at a certain price, and all of a sudden the market changes, and you're like, well, I'm no longer profitable in this area. Like I'm barely making as much money as I used to make. So someone could come along to you and say, like, quit complaining. You should just source better things. And it's like, well, yeah, I could source better things now, but the market has changed from what I was at. So there are things that can make a big difference. And so I don't think shipping alone is one of those things, but it could be a major factor.
Maybe we need to retitle this episode. Here's some possible reasons why you shouldn't leave eBay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the thing though is I'm willing to let there be gray room to say like there's reasons, whereas I feel like sometimes you'll get to the point where you're like just 100% no, this is never a reason. Okay. Like there's never a summer slowdown. Also, my sales are so slow.
Yes, I know. All right, hey, we always keep it real on this podcast, and so if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to smash that like button. If you haven't subscribed, make sure to subscribe. And with that being said, make sure to be real,
be relevant,
and be reselling late.
Peace.